sometimes things build up.
Think about all that Diddy has done for the culture.
They asked me about Puff, and I answered it as honestly as I knew how to answer.
Sean Diddy Combs is facing more explosive allegations in a bombshell lawsuit.
This is the type of indictment you would expect from someone in the mafia.
Heavy usage of various illegal drugs and alcohol and sexual paraphernalia.
I don't know that I could keep him off the stand. He is very eager.
For the past year, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs has grappled with mounting allegations of sex trafficking, coercion, and abuse. As new evidence and insider testimonies continue to surface, his once sterling image is further tarnished, threatening to dismantle his legacy and redefine his place in the music industry. Diddy's troubles began in late 2023 when his ex-girlfriend, Cassandra Ventura, commonly known as Cassie, filed a lawsuit accusing him of coercive and abusive behavior throughout their relationship. Cassie's allegations were only the tip of the iceberg, triggering a series of legal actions and investigations that have since uncovered a plethora of disturbing claims against the Bad Boy Records founder.
A lawsuit filed against Sean Diddy Combs accuses the music performer and executive of rape, physical abuse, and sex trafficking. The singer Cassie says the incidents occurred throughout her 10-year relationship with Combs. Her suit was filed under a law that allows alleged sexual offense victims to file past the statute of limitations. Cassie says she wanted to speak out before that law expires next week. Mr. Combs has denied all the allegations. For more, let's bring in entertainment attorney Dante Mills. So Dante, thanks for being with us. Cassie has signed with that label when she was just 19 and Sean Combs was 37. What's alleged to have happened after that?
Thank you for having me, Catherine. So in this lawsuit, I just wanted to be clear, this is a civil lawsuit. This is not a criminal lawsuit. There's no chance here as we stand for Sean Combs to go to jail. It's a civil lawsuit about money. And the claim is that during their relationship, he was physically abusive, that he required or demanded that she perform certain sexual acts with other people while he was there, and that he, in fact, raped her shortly before she left him. She said she did not want to have sexual relations with him, and he forced himself on her. That's the basis of this lawsuit.
The most notable of these were charges of sex trafficking, which led to federal raids on Diddy's residences in Los Angeles and Miami.
Well, he says that he's innocent, right? And he's calling the raids excessive and also a witch hunt. His attorney releasing a statement to the media and court TV that in part reads this: yesterday, there was a gross overuse of military-level force as search warrants were executed at Mr. Combs' residences. There is no excuse for the excessive show of force and hostility exhibited by authorities or the way his children and employees were treated. Mr. Combs was never detained but spoke to and cooperated with authorities. Despite media speculation, neither Mr. Combs nor any of his family members have been arrested, nor has their ability to travel been restricted in any way. News crews in Los Angeles caught Diddy's sons on camera being cuffed for a short time. They were not arrested, not taken into custody, and this is still unfolding.
There has been a lot of speculation about his private jet, whether or not it fled the country, but according to the attorney, he wouldn't be fleeing, go anywhere he wants to. What do we know about where he is?
The fallout from these allegations has been swift and severe. In a notable February 2024 episode of his Council Culture podcast, Nick Cannon addressed the situation, reflecting on his personal connection with Diddy and expressing his conflicted feelings.
Think about all that Diddy has done for the culture.
They asked me about Puff, and I answered it as honestly as I knew how to answer it. I know these people, they're not just public figures to me.
Nick Cannon's comments about Diddy resurfacing in the wake of the music mogul's federal home raids.
What about Puff? I don't know how to feel about that.
Everybody has things that we have to deal with, and through love and understanding, we'll get through it.
The Masked Singer host getting through it on his Council Culture podcast in February, addressing what he said earlier in December on Way Up with Angela Yee.
Cassie, straight up.
In the aftermath of Diddy's sexual assault allegations from his ex, Cassie. Diddy denies the claims, but still, they ultimately settled. It's worth noting both appearances were recorded before Diddy's home raids.
I saw you leave like a, nice comment for Cassie.
Yeah.
With everything that's been happening with Diddy.
And there's a lot of things that we probably don't know the details on, but we all on the outside looking in.
I'm praying for Cassie, trying to find the high frequency in knowing the story, knowing the right thing to talk about. I was like, this is someone who was hurt, who was victimized.
Cannon's comments highlighted a broader public sentiment, an uneasy mix of disbelief and concern over the accusations facing a figure long revered in the music industry.
And I was going through my stuff, someone that called, checked on me, stood by me, stood up for me. When no one else would protect me.
We just like the audience, we sitting back, praying and hoping for the best, but then at the same time, when you know individuals, it's like a family member. I don't agree with the behavior, but I care for the person.
So I have to almost do this dance about when it comes up, because just as much as I know Diddy, I know Cassie.
In November, Cassie's lawsuit allegations were only the start of legal troubles for Diddy.
As we watch it, we're watching it in real time, and we don't know how to feel because, one, we don't know the truth. We don't know everything. When it's revealed, it'll be revealed. And then when we are presented whatever the actual truth is, it's like, all right, well, how do we feel about what we've signed on for to be a part of that person's movement?
Federal prosecutors have painted a grim picture of Diddy's activities, alleging that he used his wealth and influence to orchestrate and participate in so-called freak-offs, sex parties involving commercial sex workers, drugs, and recorded performances. These claims have been bolstered by evidence from a 2016 incident where surveillance footage showed Diddy violently confronting Cassie at a Los Angeles hotel.
So, John, Cassie filed her lawsuit in November. The feds raided Diddy's home in March. Now we see this awful video, which is more than 8 years old. And yet, Diddy has still not been charged with anything. I would think there would be grounds for his arrest in that video. Why hasn't he been charged with anything?
Well, the video is out of the statute of limitations. The statute of limitations in California for a simple assault is a year. For domestic violence assault, it was 3 years. They've moved that up to 5 years, but this is out of range for a state charge in California. However, let's get back to that federal investigation. What HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, is doing, as Elizabeth framed it, is they are building a racketeering case, a RICO case based on human trafficking and allegations startlingly similar that track those that have been made in Cassandra Ventura's lawsuit and in the lawsuit by another individual who worked for Combs, that tell these stories of people being brought in the presence of weapons and drugs and so on. It's very much like what they did in the R. Kelly case, which got him 30 years in prison. So this charge, even though it's state crime is out of the statute of limitations, would be fair game in that federal case.
Despite his defense team's efforts to dismiss these charges, the federal government's relentless pursuit has uncovered more damning evidence. A recent court filing detailed how an investigator from the Bureau of Prisons allegedly breached attorney-client privilege by photographing and seizing notes from Diddy's jail cell. These notes reportedly contained sensitive information about defense strategies and witness testimonies.
Now, in the latest court filing from Monday, the defense claims that the Bureau of Prisons investigator, referred to as Investigator 1, copied notes that Combs had written down in his cell, possibly information that was privileged. Now, back in October, there was a raid by federal investigators at the MDC. According to reports, the MDC is notorious for drugs, weapons, and violence. Officials were reportedly looking for any sort of contraband the inmates might have. Now, Combs was questioned and photographs were taken of items in his cell. Now, according to a file from federal prosecutors, the sweep was pre-planned and coordinated to ensure the safety and security of the staff and inmates at the MDC, and was part of a larger safety and security initiative and not in response to any particular threat or intelligence. The MDC sweep planned well in advance of the defendant's arrest and not conducted to target any particular inmate, included the jail and the warehouse where MDC food and other property are stored. During the MDC sweep, multiple housing units were searched, including the defendant's unit.
Diddy's defense team has vehemently contested these actions, accusing the prosecution of misconduct and calling for an evidentiary hearing to address the alleged violations. They argue that the seizure of privileged notes was a deliberate act by the investigator to aid the prosecution, thereby infringing on Diddy's constitutional rights. Despite these claims, a federal judge has largely sided with the prosecution, denying Diddy bail multiple times and allowing the contested evidence to remain in play.
But prosecutors had him give them to the filter team first for review. Now, filter teams, also known as taint teams, are pretty controversial in the legal system. The defense might have important or pertinent information that needs to be turned over to the prosecution under the rules of discovery. But that information might also be protected by attorney-client privilege. The filter team serves kind of as a middleman. It's a group of prosecutors not involved in the case who sift through the evidence to pick out anything that shouldn't be shared with the prosecuting attorneys and remove or redact that from the discovery material. The prosecution wrote that accusing the Bureau of Prisons investigator of working on behalf of the prosecutors is meritless. The mere fact that a prison official turned over material seized from a detainee's cell to prosecutors after the fact with no prior coordination regarding the seizure does not show that he acted at their behest. In fact, courts have repeatedly held that searches initiated by prison officials, even where those prison officials later turned over evidence seized from those searches to prosecutors, and such evidence was helpful to a prosecution against the defendant, do not implement the Fourth Amendment.
As the trial date approaches, the stakes for Diddy have never been higher. The prosecution is expected to present a robust case, drawing on the extensive evidence gathered through raids, witness testimonies, and the controversial notes seized from his cell. It's basically impossible for Diddy to win this case, and people have already accepted most allegations against him to be true.
Speaking of, in particular, Netflix docuseries that you've been working on, Diddy Do It.
Right.
You've been saying for years that you feel you knew Diddy's character.
Right.
Yet you said you weren't a part of that lifestyle, you weren't going to the parties. So what makes you so absolutely sure that these kinds of allegations that we've seen against him are true?
Well, I'm surprised by the allegations, as surprised as everyone else is. Like, I didn't make the allegations, I didn't tell people to say these things. It comes out, I see it in the news like everyone else, but I did feel uncomfortable with the way he would present the idea of going to these projects.
To come party with me.
Yeah. And then that swayed me away from it, just that alone.
So you didn't realize
as much stuff was coming. Like when I seen today, it was allegations of 3 men that said he drugged them, and it's a long time, to be honest with you. Like when people don't remember being violated for 20 years, it makes me feel a little hard.
What are your thoughts on the allegations against Jay-Z?
That was interesting. When I was saying things, not knowing exactly what I was saying, but I was going, where's Jay at? He's mad quiet. Like while the Puffy thing was going on. But it's obvious now that his team was being made aware that he was in those allegations also. You know, so I hope it works out, because with his family, the things that go on internally is that those accusations.
Adding to Diddy's mounting legal woes is a bombshell lawsuit filed by his former executive assistant, Philip Pines. Pines alleges that from 2019 to 2021, he was coerced into organizing drug-fueled parties and performing degrading acts to prove his loyalty.
Sean Diddy Combs is facing more explosive allegations in a bombshell lawsuit. This one filed by his reportedly former executive assistant, who claims he was coerced into setting up drug-fueled parties and even performing degrading acts to prove his loyalty to the music mogul. We're going to break down these latest shocking details of alleged sexual coercion, abuse, and manipulation, and how this adds to the mounting legal troubles for Sean Diddy Combs. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Well, it is another day, and it is another Diddy lawsuit. Yep, this time from a man who says he was the former executive assistant of the disgraced rapper and music producer, and he is accusing Diddy of essentially sexual coercion, abuse, battery, sex trafficking, intentional infliction of emotional distress. And it all stems, he says, from what happened at these lavish drug-fueled nights called Wild King Nights.
Pine's 32-page lawsuit, reviewed by multiple outlets, including Rolling Stone, claims that he was responsible for setting up lavish gatherings dubbed Wild King Nights that involved heavy usage of illegal drugs, alcohol, and sexual paraphernalia.
Well, part of this lawsuit alleges that Pines had to prove his loyalty to Sean Combs, who was dubbed the King, by performing sex acts for him, hence the name Wild King Nights. The suit even reportedly says that Pines was treated, quote, like an animal playing fetch in order to prove his loyalty. And by the way, that is just one of the many disturbing details in this lawsuit. So to help me break it down, I want to bring on friend of the show, defense attorney Mauricio Padilla, who has been our go-to as we've been covering the Sean Combs saga. Mauricio, so good to see you. Thanks so much. Happy holidays. Before we get into the
as well.
Yeah, thank you. Before we get into the specifics here, you know, I feel like we're almost becoming numb to the lawsuit after the lawsuit after the lawsuit. And do all of the allegations against Combs so far that we've seen make the claims here, these new claims, do you think it makes it more or less true? In other words, does the fact that a lawsuit comes out in late 2024, as opposed to maybe at the beginning of the year or right after he was arrested, but, you know, on the heels of all the allegations so far, how should we all be thinking about yet another lawsuit against Sean Combs?
Pines alleges that his duties extended to cleaning up the aftermath, which included removing drugs, condoms, sex toys, and bodily fluids, and wiping Diddy's personal devices of any compromising videos. Pines claims he was forced to watch these videos before deleting them, further adding to his trauma.
Especially regarding the allegations of scrubbing his cell phone and other devices for evidence, things of that nature, that when you read it, it really, you know, it goes hand in hand with the indictment.
I want to get into that, especially the time frame, because let's keep this in mind. Prosecutors have alleged criminal conduct from 2008 to 2024. This would be right in that time frame. So let's everybody keep that in mind. We'll talk more about it, but I have to get into a little bit more of these allegations, starting with what Pines says he was in charge of doing for these parties. What was his job? So one of the things Pines alleges here is that he was responsible for setting up these gatherings, which reportedly involved heavy usage of various illegal drugs and alcohol and sexual paraphernalia. And sometimes it would take place inside of Diddy's bedroom. He says that Diddy instructed him to prepare spaces with these specific items. Quote, plaintiff was instructed by Sean Combs on multiple occasions to ensure his personal bedroom and or various hotel rooms were set up with red lights, ice buckets, alcohol, marijuana joints, honey packs for male libido, baby oil, Astroglide, towels, illegal drugs, and I'm sorry to say this, power banger sex machine.
These allegations align closely with those made by prosecutors who have charged Diddy with sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The prosecutor's case, which spans alleged criminal conduct from 2008 to 2024, describes similar scenarios of drug-fueled parties and sexual exploitation. Pine's lawsuit is particularly significant as it provides a first-hand account from someone within Diddy's inner circle, potentially strengthening the prosecution's case.
If I had to guess, I would figure that the feds already talked to him, just because I know from my experience dealing with them how all-encompassing their investigations are, and if he really was his executive assistant from the time frame that they allege in the lawsuit, I can't see a scenario where they wouldn't. I mean, they investigate regular cases to the point that you're, that I'm shocked when I see it as a criminal defense attorney with regular people. When you're talking about a high-profile celebrity case like this, I can't fathom that no one spoke to this individual prior to this. So I would think that, they did speak to him, and I can't imagine that he's not a witness, because the way that they work is they want everybody that can corroborate their theory of the case to be on their witnesses or to be somebody that they could call. And I can't think that if he actually was his assistant for this time frame, he would be an excellent witness for them.
See, the problem is we don't know who the witnesses are in that criminal case yet. I don't know when we're going to know, maybe closer to trial, but you have to imagine that their case is built on more than just the testimony of one alleged victim, right? Victim one in the indictment. It has to be more.
Defense attorney Mauricio Padilla, a regular commentator on the Sean Combs saga, emphasizes the importance of Pines' testimony. He notes that if Pines' allegations are true, they pose a significant problem for Diddy because they come from a former employee rather than an anonymous accuser. Padilla believes that the prosecutors are likely to include Pines as a witness, given the consistency of his claims with their indictment.
And it also talks about Sean Combs physically attacking guests, that he kicked somebody in the stomach, that he kicked somebody in the buttocks. So it's really tying together the theory that the prosecution has put out there in their indictment. And yeah, I mean, I believe that he is a witness. I mean, it's really mimicking a lot of the same things that the federal government is saying that Sean Combs was up to during this time period.
And because the government says, you know, it was a racketeering conspiracy, it was a criminal enterprise. He had associates of his who would set up these events and also clean up these events, which, by the way, let me get back to this lawsuit. Because Pine says his role didn't just stop at preparing this. He also says he had to clean up these rooms afterwards. And the cleanup is not any less disturbing, according to the lawsuit. Plaintiff would remove any evidence of drugs, condoms, sex toys, remove bodily stains like blood, urine, and fluids from any sheets, furniture, and pack away all the items used during Wild King nights.
One of the key aspects of this case is whether Pines can prove his allegations. His testimony, corroborated by records such as payments, flight logs, and surveillance footage, will be crucial. Padilla points out that despite Diddy's previous legal troubles, there might be evidence left behind due to potentially sloppy cover-up attempts.
Real quick, Mauricio, before we wrap this up, he is right. He is innocent until proven guilty. If he is acquitted in his criminal trial, what happens to the other lawsuits? Do you think they still go forward?
Yeah, they go forward. You're dealing with a different bar regarding, you know, whether it's reasonable doubt or preponderance of the evidence. You could be found in, not guilty of a criminal case, but they could have, more than enough evidence to convict you in a civil trial. These civil guys are looking for money. They're not going to stop no matter what, even if he's acquitted or not. It's a completely different threshold, and I don't see them stopping until they actually, get money from him, which is what they want.
But do you think that these plaintiffs, who, as I mentioned, it seems that they came forward particularly after Combs was arrested and now he's been denied bail, if he is acquitted and he is released, do you think that they'll still want to go after him?
Well, listen, I think so, because their name's already in the media. They've already started, this fight. That means if he's acquitted and he's out and you're fearful of, retribution, you're still on his hit list no matter what, just because you started. Might as well finish it and might as well try and get your money. These lawsuits cost money. So the lawyers are going to be, on the hook for everything that they put forward regarding costs. So they're going to want to generate revenue from these lawsuits.
Moreover, the lawsuit mentions that Pines felt compelled to create records of these events as a form of self-protection against potential threats from Diddy. This foresight may provide additional evidence to support his claims. While Diddy maintains his innocence, asserting he has never sexually assaulted or trafficked anyone, the mounting lawsuits and consistent allegations present a formidable challenge to his defense. That's it for now. Don't forget to tell us what you think in the comments below. For more updates, hit the bell icon.